Good evening. This is Flash News Show, the program where we tell it all about Poland and the rest of the world from here, Warsaw. In Poland, I'm Karolina Pączkowska. Welcome. Tax cuts that will benefit 18 million Poles. A guarantee of own contribution and subsides loans when buying a flat, as well as accelerated growth in expenditure on healthcare. These are some of the pillars of the Polish deal, i.e. the Polish government's social and economic policy for the coming years.
The tax-free amount will be raised to 30,000 zloty. For a vast majority of Poles, this will be a tenfold increase. This means that no tax will be paid on salaries and pensions up to 2,500 zloty a month. And that is not the end of the tax revolution. The second income tax threshold will also be raised significantly. At the moment, it is 85,000 zloty a year. This will be raised to 120,000. This is the first increase in 12 years. For people who want to take a loan for a flat and do not have the funds for an own contribution, the state will guarantee up to 100,000 zlotys for this purpose. In the case of families with more than one child, the subsidy will be higher. From the second child, there will be a 20,000 loan repayment by the state, 60,000 for a third and 20,000 for each next one up to the sixth child, altogether up to 160,000 zloty. It will not be necessary anymore to apply for a building permit for a construction of a house of up to 70 square meters. The family was one of the main pillars of what we want to build together with the Poles and will not deviate from this path. Spending on Poles' health will grow faster, to 6% of GDP in 2 years and 7% of GDP in 6 years. The crisis from which we have drawn the right conclusions is an accelerator of change. It's an accelerator of good change towards improving the quality of healthcare. Other detailed proposals of the Polish deal were presented by the leaders of the United Right. We shall pass a new law on remote work. Security Plus, this is how some people perceive this part of the program for which Solidarna Polska is responsible. It is worth pursuing Polish aspirations and even Polish dreams. The implementation of the Polish deal has been sealed by signing the program declaration.
Now, good news, because 7 months of partial lockdown has come to an end. From today, looser restrictions apply in Poland. No need to wear masks outdoors if we keep a 60-inch distance from each other's. Restaurants, gardens, and open-air cinemas have also been reopened.
A breath of fresh air and a family stroll without masks. We have been waiting for this moment since the 10th of October last year. Mentally, you feel differently. Some kind of normality comes back. At last, you see people's faces, not just their eyes. The high number of vaccinated people allows the restrictions to be lifted. From now on, people may visit open-air theaters and cinemas. Stadium stands can be 25% full. There is also relief for restaurant owners who have open gardens in front of their premises. At last we can go out to people. At last we can meet in the open air. We also are very happy. However, epidemiologists call for prudence and the police remind the population that the obligation to cover the mouth and nose is still in force indoors. Today, the Health Ministry confirmed more than 2,800 new infections. 298 people died.
International affairs, the situation in the Middle East is becoming increasingly tense. That was another night of the Israeli offensive on the Gaza Strip. Buildings are being destroyed and people are being killed in the air raids, mostly civilians. In response, Hamas has already fired more than 2,300 missiles at Israeli border towns.
Gaza residents have found themselves in a death trap. The Israeli shelling is not easing and the number of victims is going up. A third of the nearly 150 people killed are women and children. Last night, this man's family, among others, was killed by Israeli bombs. My brother has a pregnant wife and 4 children. They were all killed by Israeli missiles. My whole family. Israel has no mercy, even for children. Israeli planes also bombed a 13th-floor office building that housed many foreign editors. They were all evacuated before the attack took place because the Israeli military has warned of the attack.
What's happening on the ground, the loss of life, the loss of children's lives, the loss of family members' lives, whether it's Palestinian lives or Israeli lives, is incredibly tragic. It's horrific to watch. that is certainly why our focus is on de-escalating.
But de-escalation is out of the question for the time being. In retaliation for Israeli airstrikes, Hamas have already launched more than 2,300 rockets at the border towns. There are casualties on the other side too.
There was an explosion, a hard one. We had a rocket hitting our building. We live over here. I heard the sound of windows splashing, windows falling off the building. A lot of people screaming.
Unfortunately, the conflict has also a street face. In many cities where Arabs and Jews lived side by side, there are violent fights, attempts at lynching, riots. The Middle East is in turmoil. The first humanitarian aid is reaching the Gaza Strip. These are mainly medicines and bandages because the number of injured people increases every day. We are providing the most necessary medical support. The situation is very difficult. Many people are seriously injured and new patients are arriving in hospitals after each shelling. The UN Security Council will meet on Sunday to discuss the situation in the Middle East.
And not much further, in Syria, civil war has been on for a decade. Among the hundreds of thousands of victims, there are also children. The Polish medical mission has launched a project to support the youngest who have lost limbs as a result of bombings.
A bomb fell on the home of 9-year-old Samira. The girl sustained a wound on her leg so vast the doctors had to amputate it. I want to go to school, but I don't have a prosthesis. She's one of 240,000 children in Syria who have lost limbs. The child cannot go to the bathroom by herself, cannot move between rooms unless she crawls. It causes deep depression, trauma that's very difficult to treat.
Our children deserve the life like every other child in the world.
For this to happen, however, prostheses are needed, an expense that's beyond the means of Syrian families. The cost of the simplest one is 6,000 zlotys. Hence the action of the Polish medical mission, which has opened an orthopedic center in Termanin and has already supported several hundred mutilated people. I'm just very happy that these 300 or so people, thanks to the prostheses, saw that the Poles have not abandoned them, that the world had not forgotten and that someone still cares.
This is Flash News and still more to come. Now the news out of this space. A Chinese probe with a rover named Zhurong has landed on the surface of Mars. This is the first Chinese mission to the Red Planet. It is already getting a bit crowded though out there, as the American rover has been working on Mars since February this year.
Chinese reached Mars. Just 3 months after the landing of the US Perseverance rover, a new object from Earth has arrived on Mars. It's a Chinese probe with the Zhurong rover, which is expected to roam the Red Planet for several weeks. It sounds like another part of Star Wars, but it is a reality. After 224 days of flight, the Chinese probe has successfully landed. We can assume that the instrumentation that is installed there and all the technology are similar to those that were sent to the Red Planet by NASA a few years ago. The rover, named after a fire deity from Chinese mythology, has solar propulsion, 6 wheels, is almost 2 meters high and weighs almost 250 kilograms. The main goal of both missions to Mars is clear. If any clues can be found that there used to be life on Mars, it will be a major breakthrough, not only scientifically, but also probably philosophically. But beyond the purely scientific aspect, there is also the context of rivalry between the superpowers.
The United States Space Force is being built from the
The United States is a leader in space exploration. What is more, 2 years ago it created the 6th corps of the military, the Space Force. Meanwhile, China does not want to use the International Space Station and is building its own instead. The Chinese implement most of their ideas themselves. They don't want to play ball with the International Space Station that the Japanese, Europeans and Americans are building. One thing is certain, the race for dominance in space has accelerated, and what used to be just special effects for the movies is now becoming a reality. The important thing is to stay on the bright side of the force.
And so we mentioned about the machines out of this world, and now we talk about a person out of this world. He did it. Robert Lewandowski has once again shown that nothing is impossible, and there are no heights that are unejectable. Our striker scored his 14th goal in this Bundesliga season today and equalize Gerd Müller's record, which is almost half a century old.
This is how you go down in football history. The referee's whistle, he sets off Robert Lewandowski a goal. It is his 40th in this Bundesliga season. The captain of the Polish national team needed just 28 games for that. That gives a cosmic average of almost 1.5 goals per game. Kudos and great respect. In this way, only great champions are honoured. I have achieved a goal that seemed impossible. I'm incredibly proud to be making Bayern history and playing a part in the stories that fans will pass on to their children, just like the legend of Gerd Müller.
Lewandowski is a real phenomenon. I mean, the way he's playing his career throughout his entire career has already been outstanding. But what he's doing the last few years is just unbelievable.
Robert Lewandowski has scored more goals this season than 6 Bundesliga teams. He hit the net of 16 of his 17 opponents and was the main architect of the Bavarians' 9th consecutive title. Bayern are addicted to Robert's goals. 9-time German champion, Champions League winner and the scoring king. Winner and most valuable player of the Club World Cup, FIFA Footballer of the Year.
This doesn't matter what kind of title or how many titles you already won. You can win still more. It's my ambition. I'm the guy who don't think about the past. I'm the guy who thinking about the future. What can be happening? What can I do more? What can I do better?
That's why Levy hasn't stepped off the top global level for several years. Just when it seems you can't play any better, he's doing just that. He's an accomplished player, he's fast and strong and reads the game well. He deservedly won the FIFA Player of the Year award. If he can achieve a good result with Poland at the Euro Championships, he can do it again. Next week, Robert will have the opportunity to break Gerd Müller's record.
And we wish him that. Great success of other very special Polish team person. Iga Swiatek, the Polish tennis player, advanced to the final of the prestigious WTA tournament in Rome. A feat worth admiration, especially that the Pole had to play 2 matches today due to bad weather in the past days.
Iga Swiatek started her first match on court a short while ago. Her rival was the 6th-ranked racket in the world, the Ukrainian Elina Svitolina. In the first set, the Pole dominated her opponent and took advantage of her mistakes. In 36 minutes, she won 6-2. The second set was a display of women's tennis at the highest level. In the key moments, it was Iga Swiatek who showed who deserved to win. 7-5 the second set and the whole match for the Warsaw-born tennis player. Just over 3 hours rest and another match. A semi-final against 17-year-old American Corey Koch-Goff. A powerful serve proved problematic for the Pole. The first set had to be decided in a tie-break. It was Swiatek who prevailed. The second set was a great performance by a tennis player. The American was better only in 3 of 9 games. This ensured Iga Swiatek's victory and advanced to the final of the tournament in Rome. Iga was able to cope with having to play 2 matches on one day in a big tournament in Rome, a quarterfinal and a semi-final. And in both of them she hadn't given up a set to her rivals. This is really reassuring. To win the tournament in Rome, Iga Swiatek will confront the 9th player of the world, Karolina Pliskova from the Czech Republic.
Now we move to the islands. The London Museum of Wax Figures, like other cultural institutions in Britain, reopened its doors on Monday. It has prepared a surprise for visitors in the room where the royal family is displayed.
Out of the royal family in real life and in the famous museum too. Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan no longer stand in a row with the Queen and her loved ones. Their wax figures have been moved to the room where Hollywood stars are shown. This is probably a reference to Meghan Markle's profession before her marriage, as Harry can hardly be counted among the stars. Unless Hollywood is already writing a script about a prince who doesn't want to be a prince. $103,400,000. That's the amount someone paid at auction in New York for Pablo Picasso's painting Woman Sitting by a Window. This is not the highest bid for the work of the Spanish artist, but it's almost double the asking price. The figure, immortalized 1932 on the canvas, is Marie-Thérèse Walter, Picasso's French muse and model. Mexican paleontologists have been studying for 8 years the remains of a prehistoric reptile they came across during excavations in northern Mexico. Only now could they announce with certainty that they had discovered a new unusual species of dinosaur. They called it Tlatolophus gallorum. It resembled a giant parrot in appearance but a rooster in behavior. It made very loud sounds, which not only attracted females but also scared off enemies. The Chacan peccary of the peccary family is an endangered species. There are so few of these animals living in the wild in South America that only a few years ago they were considered extinct. Therefore, when in April in the zoo in South Bend, in the American state of Indiana, the baby peccaries were born, the joy was enormous, and the public debut today has added pride to the joy.
And that's a wrap. Thank you very much for joining us on Flash News. We will see you tomorrow, same time on tvp.info. Goodbye for now.